Him is the latest, and I think only, sports horror movie. We follow Cameron Cade, played by Tyriq Withers, an NFL player on his way to becoming the best until an unexpected injury occurs. This unexpected injury leads him to go seek the help from a more seasoned NFL player, Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans. From there, what starts off as a pretty luxurious route to recovery soon turns into evil and chaos. That's all pretty much. Any spoilers, you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. Him. Funny story, this movie at one point was actually called The GOAT, but I guess Sony had beat them to the trademark with their animated movie coming up, so they changed the title to Him. Now you know why they say The GOAT a lot in this movie. But like I was saying at the beginning of this review, I really do consider this like the first mainstream horror movie. I joked around, you could probably Google the phrase zombie and soccer and a movie like that exists. But as far as like a movie with a big theatrical push by a studio getting released, I feel like Him is the first of its kind, a sports horror movie, where the sport itself is actually the main focus. It's not just like a side thing, kind of like Jeepers Creepers 2, where it's a football team on a bus that gets stranded in the middle of nowhere. I wouldn't really count that, you know? So even though I'm not much of a sports guy, that idea in itself fascinated me, and the producing credit, Jordan Peele, who again, reminder, producer. A lot of people, and even the studio loves to do this, trick the audience, making them think Jordan Peele wrote or directed this when neither. This is directed by Justin Tipping. Same sort of thing happened back with the Candyman remake we had with Nia DaCosta. Everyone was like, oh, Jordan Peele's Candyman, when he didn't direct or write that. Still though, that just goes to show you how much Jordan Peele's name kind of carries, because I think a lot of people do believe he wrote or did something very important with this movie, and that's why it's happening. Honestly, putting that aside, the biggest thing to me was Marlon Wayans. I know he's no stranger to a serious role. Way back in the day when I was getting serious on my film journey, I checked out Requiem for a Dream, and I knew the man can act. Of course, I prefer him when he's funny, but seeing him in a role like this, it was refreshing, because it had been a while before I had seen him in something this serious. So, not gonna lie, kind of went in with expectations a little high, hoping for this to be kind of a standout horror movie of this year, and went to see it, checked it out. This is gonna be a mixed one. This is gonna be a divisive one. It's gonna have its fans. I don't know if I'm one of them. Let me start off with things I did like about it. Going back to Justin Tipping as the director, hats off to him, because this is a visually striking movie. You can tell this director has a real eye, and he's hungry for some visual storytelling, and that's on full display all throughout Him. There's tons of really great shots. A lot of the movie is carried by its score or music in the back, kind of almost making it feel like a music video at times, so you really are dependent on just the visuals and the things happening on screen. Not just that for the storytelling, but when we get to the horror aspect, they do some kind of creative and creepy things within the world of football and that community. You kind of understand maybe why there's not that many horror movies based off of sport, because I think there is only so much you can do, but they managed to do some stuff. Things like maybe a deranged fan that's excited to meet you, but from the player's perspective, it can come off creepy. It can come off as, are you a normal fan or are you a stalker fan? That and like fans who paint themselves at games, and like how odd that could come off in certain situations. There's a real great use of just pressure cooking from like working out or the pressures of being this football player, more specifically this quarterback, where a lot of the team's success is riding on you. I feel like there was enough interesting things where they were able to translate something from the football world and kind of horrify it for this movie, where visually it was very appealing. Tyriq Withers, who plays the main character, just trying to recover from this injury and is looking up to this mentor. Isaiah White, Marlon Wayans' character, he does a good job in the role. And, you know, I just saw him in I Know What You Did Last Summer, the recent reboot. Had my issues with that, but he wasn't one of them. I thought he was good in that, and he's even better in this one. You see the drive he has, the passion, but also the thing that's kind of holding him back, the whole reason he needs this mentor to push him to his limits. And well, speaking on the mentor, Marlon Wayans is kind of the thing that ultimately saved this movie for me and made me actually end up enjoying a big aspect of this movie. He really stepped back into a serious role so easily. He switches back and forth just seamlessly from like the funny guy who's got your back, seems like he's your best friend, and then switches over to serious coach mode and is making you do some kind of questionable things. Marlon Wayans is great and he should do more stuff like this. Not just that, but his comedic chops also added on a lot to some of the scenes. There's stuff that just no other actor would have been able to pull off, that are little punchlines at the end of scenes that I thought he made it work so well and added some needed humor into a pretty serious film. Makes me more excited to see him back again in Scary Movie 6, which I know it won't be as serious, but just to see him go full crazy in a horror movie kind of style, I can't wait. But those were honestly the things I most appreciated about the movie, is its visual style, its imagery that it had on screen, how it kind of horrified some of those football things that you just kind of see as norms within that sport. The performances from the lead, specifically Marlon Wayans, and now getting into things that left me mixed or left me wanting more for this film. Unfortunately, I do think this is a case of style over substance. The story in this movie is paper thin, man. I mean, I was hoping for more, but there isn't much of a story. Yes, the guy wants to recover and be the best and get pushed to those limits by his mentor, but other than that goal from the character, you feel this lurking evil presence. You know something bad's about to happen, and I think the movie just lacks that direction to let its audience know what's about to be cooking, where we're headed. And by the time you get to that reveal or that scene, what we're actually headed to, I think a lot of people have been checked out by that point. Not just that, but a lot of its metaphors and things it's trying to like provoke or make you think about is not as clever as it makes it seem, man. It's honestly very surface level observations. We get it. It takes a lot to become the best, and the movie is doing a lot of exaggerated things for someone who goes through the whole football journey. Whether it comes to the training, the lifelong dedication, the pressures of rivalries, and one day you'll outgrow that, and what happens if the fans turn on you, all that kind of stuff. It addresses those and it gives them their own scenes. Some of them even get horrified, which were really creepy. I mean, specifically in the trailer, you see that one of the guy who just gets repeatedly hit with footballs in the face till he bleeds. That scene was very intense. I enjoyed that. But all of these metaphors and things it's reaching for, it never quite gets to a deep level where I was like, oh, they're cooking here. I see what they're doing. This is really deep and profound, when really I was like, I get that, but like, what else you got? You got anything deeper than that? That's as deep as we going, huh? We not even in the end zone. Football joke for you from the guy who don't watch it. I do my best here. And that's really what disappointed me. I know there are going to be fans of this movie, and there are going to be people who champion it, and I want to say this lightly because I don't want to insult anybody if they liked it. Of course, there's definitely things to like. Great performances, good visual style, but it is going to be the people who are like, oh, I knew it. There is evilness going on in the NFL. I knew you had to like sell your soul or do some sick stuff. And this movie is exposing, and Chris giving it a semi-negative review, he sold his soul too. He doesn't want it to be exposed. It's those tinfoil extra conspiracy hat people that I think will get the most out of this movie, because they'll see it and go, this is deep. This is crazy. They're just putting it out there. How did they get away with making this movie? I just think it's honestly surface level stuff. I was hoping for them to go like further with it or do a little more with that idea, but it just scene to scene of this metaphor, that is just not as smart as it's hoping to be. Maybe I'm a little bit more biased too, because one of my favorite movies of all time is Whiplash, and I feel like Whiplash is the best version of this kind of movie, a film where we explore how much are you willing to sacrifice and push yourself to be the best in whatever it is you do. I know Whiplash isn't really a horror movie, but it has those dark, unsettling undertones, and I feel like something like this handles it so much more better without having to dedicate several scenes to a big old metaphor to incite something that isn't that hard to connect the dots to, you know? Like I said, I know there will be fans who will love it, and maybe it'll just mainly be the sports fans. Don't think just because I'm not a sports guy, I might not like sports, I love me sports movies. Who doesn't love a movie about dedication, pushing yourself, being the best you can be? Like, yeah, it's all I can daydream. But I feel like as the movie goes on, it gets lost in its own imagery and style, and it just forgets to give you that story, wrap up all this awesome imagery. So this isn't really a terrible film. It's more of a film that like I end up just appreciating the filmmaking and the craft of it all. But as far as like connecting with it or being something I could recommend, it's going to be a little little hard to. So when it comes to him, I'm gonna give action 2.5 stars. There are some intense sequences and kind of horrifying training moments, but it's a lot of evoking imagery and style that carries the movie. Comedy in the film, I want to give it 3 stars just for Marlon Wayans, man. I mean, he was cracking me up. Almost every other line he had a punchline at the end, and I couldn't help but to laugh. But I also think none of his humor completely takes away from like the dark, eerie feel of the film. There's definitely an unsettling feeling all throughout the film, and none of Marlon's jokes kind of take away from that. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Like, it is just a paper thin story. You know he needs to recover. He goes to see this mentor, and there it's just scene after scene of imagery and metaphors commentating on this life of a football player, this aspect of a football player, until we get to the climactic scene at the end. Then it's like really on the nose for what it's going for. Suspense of the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I was like on the edge of my seat and wondering where this was going because of the provoking imagery and the great style it had. It did have kind of like this pressure feel that something was building, something evil is coming, but it holds you in that pressure lingering state for so long, you lose interest by the time it comes. Horror in the film, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I do think there is some horrifying things, and there's obviously a lot of unsettling physical horror that goes on, but when it starts to evoke more of that style, it goes for more of an artsy flair than actually trying to horrify you. When it comes to the 3 C's, I think it's obvious that it's trying to appeal most to the critic, and that is the side most appreciating this film because of its style, cinematography, performances. I just wish it had that story to match. Casual and cinephiles are going to be extremely mixed on this movie. When it comes to him, while I do think there will be fans of this movie, and it is not a terrible movie in the slightest, it just wasn't a movie I connected with, so I don't feel confident in recommending it to you, making me suggest you wait to rent it at home.
That'll do, Donkey. That'll do.
Again, that's just my opinion on the movie, guys. I really wanted to come out loving this movie and thought it was like possibly going to be on one of my best horror movies of the year list, but it did leave me a little underwhelmed. I'm sure there's going to be people who come out liking it, and you're yelling at me in the comments right now. I'll take it. But are you someone like me that came out a little underwhelmed and more just appreciating the visual style of the movie? And everything, be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.